Welcome into the Locked On Knicks podcast. I'm your host, Gavin Schall. The New York Knicks fell 120 to 108 to the Memphis Grizzlies in what was a weird, at times kind of horrible, but ultimately pretty fun game. We'll get into it all right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I am Gavin Schall, a play-by-play broadcaster for a variety of places, Flow Sports, the NFHS Network, Varsity Media, broadcasting high school sports, both throughout New York and nationally, occasionally a little college basketball as well. Alex Wolf, deservedly, because he's been working extremely hard, has the night off. He is the editor of The Strickland. We encourage you to check out all the fantastic work The Strickland produces, including Pod Strickland. I think Stacy and Schwinn just had Ariel Pacheco on, who, if you guys listen to this podcast, you know is always great. So in case you missed that, please go and check it out. And this is Locked On Knicks. And as we mentioned, New York fell 120 to 108 to the Memphis Grizzlies in what was probably the craziest game of the Knicks season. I feel maybe I'm forgetting something. I honestly didn't go back and look, but it certainly felt like this game had absolutely everything from highs to lows. Mitchell Robinson and Julius Randle posting near triple doubles. We're going to get into in just a sec. I think one of the top 3 or 4 games of Mitchell Robinson's entire career. I thought the team, for the most part, played extremely hard, which last year was sort of a prerequisite. This year is something to be applauded and astounded by, because it so rarely happens when the entire team, maybe sans Kemba Walker, brings that level of effort and intensity. There were incredible moments like Emmanuel quickly going on a 7-0 run in about 20 seconds where he had a 4-point play and then had a pull-up 25-footer about a minute later. Featured some fantastic Quentin Grimes defense, another thing we'll touch on later in the podcast. RJ Barrett, some rim-rocking dunks. Just so many fun moments in this game. A whole lot of trash talk between these two teams. The Knicks, I think they knew that Memphis is sort of the it team in the NBA, and John Morant is sort of the it player in the NBA right now. And just about everyone in the Knicks, with all the negativity, all the vitriol around this team, they wanted to shut all that up. And they said, hey, that was, to a lesser extent, us a year ago. Let's go out and punch him in the mouth. And Memphis is just better, so it didn't really work out for them. But I thought a valiant effort all the same for the Knicks. But one that was also marred by a lot of the mistakes that have characterized their season, right? The Knicks couldn't help but be the Knicks throughout this game. RJ Barrett, I've almost never seen this before. I think he took a dribble on an inbound and stepped over the line, committing a violation there. Nerlens Noel had a tip in for an own basket. There were multiple times where the Knicks just sort of gave up in terms of transition defense. Guys not getting back led to pretty much a dunk contest between Zaire Williams and John Morant, or better yet, a lob contest of who could throw the other one the cooler pass, with Zaire Williams one on a throwback to Ja for a vicious slam. Memphis also just had a number of possessions. I mean, DeAnthony Melton had probably the most egregious one, where they got wide open threes where no one was in 4 feet of them. Also wide open dunks. Like there was one in particular where Zaire Williams just cut on a pick and roll, and Fournier and Kemba both inexplicably stayed with John Morant. That was about as easy as it gets. And that just happened like way too many times for the Knicks to reasonably win this game. And then there were the sort of just back-breaking bad luck mistakes. Evan Fournier, who hit 8 threes and had 30 points. Overall, fantastic night. 2 different tips that just went to Grizzlies players on the left wing. One was Zaire Williams, one was Desmond Bane, and both hit back-breaking threes when the Knicks had a chance to make it a one-possession game, or in the case of the previous 3, a close game in the final minutes of this one. So just too many mistakes, too much nixing, and I normally resent people who use that as a verb, but I think it's appropriate this year because it's been characteristic of this team. But let's start off focusing on the positive. I want to talk about Mitchell Robinson, because this was about as good as I've ever seen him play basketball. 14 points, 11 boards, 8 blocks going up against Steven Adams, a human cinder block. Probably the strongest player in the NBA, probably one of the strongest human beings on earth. And there were points in this game where Mitchell Robinson just sort of big boyed him, just kind of ironed him out of the picture, and getting multiple putbacks and flushes. He did the same thing to Jaren Jackson Jr. And granted, look, it wasn't a perfect game for Mitch. Jaren Jackson Jr. certainly got him a number of times where he hit threes where Mitch didn't want to get on the perimeter. Got him one time on a pretty nice spin move. But Mitch seemingly learned from his mistakes and didn't make the same mistake twice, which is not something we could say about him in the past. Certainly not something we could always say about him this season. But there was a play where Jaren Jackson Jr. tried the same spin move that worked previously on Mitch, and Mitch was right on top of it for a big time block. But I'm burying the lead here because Mitch was the linchpin of an effort to contain presumptive, maybe is this overstating, presumptive first team All NBA point guard Ja Morant and hold him to 8 of 26 shooting. And most of those points came in transition where Mitchell Robinson did not have a chance to be involved. When Mitchell Robinson was involved, Ja Morant looked, I'm not going to say looked like Kemba Walker because that's just not true, but he was not himself. He did not look exceptionally good. Mitch, I think, probably ended up blocking Ja 4 times, and it was what we saw from him when he was at his best last year that I really haven't seen from him this year, and that's leveraging his athleticism to play drop coverage and perfectly stay between the point guard and the roll man. The Grizzlies, again, with Morant's floater game, his newfound shooting ability, his explosiveness getting all the way to the basket, right there with Chris Paul and the Steph Currys of the world for the hardest guard to defend in pick and roll situations. And Mitch, a time and time again, played it just perfectly, standing between man and ball, deflecting shots, deflecting passes, altering shots when he didn't get to them. I would consider he basically committed homicide on one of Ja's floater attempts, like swatting it at just about 100 miles per hour into the crowd. And then on the offensive end of the floor, the rebounding was just at an extremely high level. And the fact that, again, he was able to clear out Adams multiple times and get put back dunks, get a couple of and one dunks. The strength work he did this offseason that we've so criticized on this podcast because we were of the opinion that it slowed him down. Or maybe it was just that he wasn't fully healthy recovering from the leg injury. But right now it's all coming together for Mitchell Robinson. And granted, he's still a very limited player in some ways, obviously, outside of the occasional flash, which we've seen 2 or 3 times this season of some ball handling and some pass fakes. Still not a lot of development in his offensive game. Still not, at least offensively at all, an ideal fit next to Julius Randle. But he's regaining the best version of himself that we've seen throughout his career and doing so as a smarter, stronger player. And that is something to celebrate in a season where there hasn't been a lot to celebrate for the Knicks. So we will take our first break. And when we return, let's get into some of the negative. We're going to talk another dismal performance from Kemba Walker, but a real positive, a fantastic performance from the Knicks' other star guard offseason acquisition in Evan Fournier. But first, I want to tell you all about BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march through the playoffs right to the big game in just a couple of weeks. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your best sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on props and on pros and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real-time updates of current games. So don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. Bet online, where the game starts. And with that, we are back on Locked On Knicks. Thank you again for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day. Put it off long enough. Let's talk Kemba Walker, who has now gone. Did he end up? Nope. He did not end up with a point in this game. He's gone 8 straight quarters without scoring the basketball. Only played 17 minutes in this one, and I think I've been using the word lost for Julius Randle. I think that would be generous to describe Kemba Walker right now. I think he serves no purpose on the New York Knicks on the court. Off the court, I think he probably does a lot for this team, but on the court, serves no purpose for the New York Knicks right now. Just has no juice. Doesn't seem at all interested in looking for a shot. Doesn't really seem that interested in the games in general, almost as if he knows going in that he's not going to have an opportunity to do what he does. And look, this is a two-way failure, I think, between the Knicks and Kemba Walker. Like Kemba, obviously not the same guy. The knee injuries have zapped him. Less so of his explosiveness, but more so his ability to have that explosiveness on a night-to-night basis. Like it's just there less often than it's not there more often than it is, would be the clearest way to say that. And he should be one of the best spot up 3-point shooting options in the NBA, right? Because this is a guy who has been a magician, and particularly at times in his Boston years at self-created threes and super difficult off the dribble triples. And we saw that during his 44-point game. We saw that in the first couple of games back from his benching. But could anyone tell me the last time Kemba Walker has hit a spot up three in a basketball game? It might be, this is a point that Ariel made on the aforementioned Pod Strickland, and I agreed with. It might be because of his height. It's a little harder to be a great spot up 3-point shooter because you're just not like a target through like a thicket of log arm defenders when you're sitting out there on the perimeter and you're sub 6'3", or at least as much of a target. And the Knicks, because they play a center around the rim and because Julius Randle hasn't been the same shooter, don't really generate like the type of interior gravity to open up room for Kemba Walker to get a lot of open threes. So that's on Kemba's teammates, but that's also on Kemba making himself available and showing some verve off the ball, which he hasn't done. Like you never really see him moving around. You see him kind of subtly repositioning, but you also see him sometimes just sitting there with his hands on his knees, just kind of watching the play, completely checked out. And he doesn't really provide any value defensively. I think that was a big part of the reason that Tibbs took him out for the entirety of the second quarter and threw Emmanuel quickly in there. So Memphis didn't really have an easy spot to attack. And I referenced this play earlier, but on the play where Kemba and Evan inexplicably doubled Ja and gave up the wide open dunk to Zaire Williams, I think that was Evan sort of thinking like, all right, we can't have Kemba on Ja because he's just going to get cooked. And they'd almost rather like kick off a help sequence to try and stop an open dunk than have that scenario. The point is, Kemba Walker, I don't think is long for the Knicks. I think the Knicks will try to trade him. I think these last two games will not help with that endeavor at all. I would be okay with at this point if the Knicks have to attach a second round pick to get off of Walker, and maybe there's a team out there that says, hey, we can use the bench creation. It's a very low cost move with only 1 year and $8 million, if I'm remembering correctly, left on his contract after this season. Let's just roll the dice and see if he could be better coming off the bench. And I think he could be better coming off the bench. And to that point, I mean, the Knicks have also failed Kemba Walker in that they don't really run a whole lot of stuff for him. I mean, I think it was Benji yesterday on Twitter, Benji Ritholtz, go throw him a follow if you're not already. I think it's at Ben Ritholtz on Twitter, throwing out there that against the Celtics ran a whole lot of horn sets for Kemba. And you get Kemba with some momentum. He's still very, very dangerous because he's one of the better pull-up 3-point shooters in the NBA. If you close out hard on that 3-point shot after he gets the step and he has the guard coming behind him with a big, he's capable of still toasting a big with his handle, even if he's not quite as explosive or quite as duplicitous. I'll say duplicitous with his dribble as he used to be. But there are ways he can still be effective. I don't think he's washed. I think for the right team, he's going to look pretty good. Might even have some moments in a playoff game or an entire series, but he is absolutely not right for the New York Knicks at this point in time. But let's talk about the flip side of that, right? Because the Knicks, they made two big signings this offseason. The other guy they went out there and got was Evan Fournier, who had another fantastic game in this one. 30 points, 11 of 18 from the field, 8 of 12 from 3-point range, 5 boards, 2 assists, and a steal, 3 turnovers, but I don't really care about that. I thought he was, again, fantastic. And for the last, should I say calendar year for 2022, he's been one of the best 3-point shooters on the planet in 2022. And credit to Fred Katz of The Athletic for pointing this out. 16 points, 3 boards, 2 assists, 1 steal, shooting 49% from the field and 49% from 3. That is scalding. It is a mark that I didn't look this up, but I would assume would lead the entire NBA over the course of a full season, or at the very least be in the top 2 or 3. He has been ridiculously good. And as we all know, he's not just doing it on 1 or 2 tries per game. He's had multiple games where he's got up 10 or more attempts from distance. And he's playing with a swagger and a confidence and an energy that simply was not there back in 2021. Like just the step back 3 he hit in this game. Like he wasn't doing anything in terms of self-creation. And when he tried, it would look really, really awkward. And now he's hitting those shots with confidence, right? And he's getting to the basket, and he missed a layup trying to do this, but he's attacking gaps and he's going up against double teams around the hoop. And that just makes such a difference in this Knicks offense that needs every single bit of production, every single bit of off the dribble juice they can get. And when they're not getting it from Kemba Walker, you need a compensatory, just over the top effort from Evan Fournier. And the reason the Knicks were in this game tonight is because they got that from Evan Fournier. I mean, even the chemistry with him and Julius is looking a little bit better again. With those two connecting on a number of nice plays, including Randle, who had more than one of these, setting him up on a signature dribble handoff into a screen. And as I noted, if you're like me, if you're a real basketball nerd, it's just so fun to watch Evan's footwork on the catch, right? He's one of the smoothest, most refined shooters in the NBA in that respect, in terms of very quickly gathering the ball, getting his feet set, rising up, and hitting a shot. Let's quickly touch on RJ Barrett as well, because I would put him in the in between. Well, I don't even want to associate him with Kemba Walker. I would say he had a good but not great game. The great element of it was he was 8 for 11 from the foul line, and when the Knicks desperately needed him, he was reinserted into the game. If I remember correctly, the score was somewhere around 49-28. This is like 5 to 7 minutes left in the second quarter. The Grizzlies were ready to run away with this one, and I think the Knicks, especially the bench unit, which didn't have a great night, were essentially ready to let the Grizzlies run away with this one. And RJ comes in, he doesn't make all of them. I think he only went like 3 for 6, but comes in, gets to the free throw line 3 consecutive times, and that is a very young player having recognition of the situation and saying, hey, whatever happens here, like these guys, and again, what is a very young bench group, when RJ came in for Burks, it's basically like all under 25 out there. These guys are lost. They're getting punched in the mouth by one of the greatest shows on earth right now. What can I do to slow the tide? And for a lot of young guys, even players that are more accomplished than RJ at this point in their career, that could be a moment where they come in and they kind of falter. And RJ just sort of put his head down, grinded out 6 free throws, calmed everyone down by doing so, because they said, hey, we don't have to flip out on offense anymore, right? We can run things through RJ and we're going to get good looks. And that is significant, I think, from a mental toughness perspective and from a skill perspective, that RJ was able to do that, continue to show off good juice. I mean, at one point just beat Triple J to the rim and got a big dunk, showed off the floater game a little bit. I thought that I really liked the play that he had late in the fourth quarter. He ended up missing the layup, but caught the ball. I believe it was from Fournier coming off a curl and got to the rim. I like Tibbs using him like that. Anything, whether it's him snaking a pick and roll or again, coming around a screen, anything to give RJ momentum going towards the basket is a really, really good thing. So I didn't think it was a great RJ Barrett game. Again, the efficiency from the field was still lacking quite a bit, and that's an element that I think will continue to lack for the foreseeable future. But the 11 free throws, the fact that he made 8 of them, everything you want from a young RJ Barrett, and something the Knicks needed to make this a competitive game tonight. All right, let's take one final break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk Julius Randle. We'll bounce around the rest of the team real quick. But we wanted to tell you about one of our oldest sponsors, a classic coming back. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. So why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket, so you can save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30%, 50%, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in there. How did you hear about us box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. And with that, we are back on Locked On Knicks, third and final segment here on Locked On Knicks. And we wanted to remind you that the NBA trade deadline is Thursday, February 10th at 3 p.m. ET. And the Locked On NBA podcast will be covering it live from 2 to 4. So you can join Kim Becker, John Corrales, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to get analysis of every blockbuster move. Subscribe to Locked On NBA YouTube and turn your notifications on so they know when you go live. Or rather, so you know when they go live. That's more important, right? Because I don't think any of you are ready to go live. But anywho, let's finish this thing up. All right, Julius Randle loved this game from Julius Randle. And maybe that seems hypocritical because he similarly to RJ Barrett lacked efficiency in this one, just 7 of 18 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3, only hit 3 free throws. But unlike RJ, 12 rebounds. RJ only had 1 assist in this game. Julius had 9. I thought one of his better all-around games on the season where he essentially, like, I'm going to go through it. He checked every box outside of shot making that I want from him, right? Like to open the game, just attack gaps hard to set other Knicks up for open threes. Hit RJ for 1, hit Fournier for 1. I think, again, that helps Fournier going a lot when Julius is driving and setting him up for easy shots and doesn't have to all be created by himself. Taking advantage of mismatches. He played bully ball with Kyle Anderson, got a layup. I mentioned this earlier in regards to Fournier, using the dribble handoff into a screen. He's a big body. Teams are playing off him right now, and the Knicks are smart to weaponize that by using Randle as a screener and a dribble handoffer. It's similar to what Draymond Green and Steph Curry do when teams play off Draymond Green. Draymond says, all right, Steph, come up here. I'm going to get you a wide open 3. And Randle is taking advantage of that. And that's a way to create gravity, even when your shot is not falling, because all of a sudden your second defender has to be there. If not, Evan Fournier is going to be banging a 3 in your face while his man gets crushed by Julius Randle. He ran the floor hard in transition for a dunk in this game. He had a throw ahead to RJ to set up another dunk. He passed up a good shot for a great shot in the fourth quarter to set Evan Fournier up for 3. He had an offensive rebound and a putback in traffic where he threw in a great pump fake and ended up with an and 1. It wasn't a perfect game. I mentioned he didn't shoot well. He had a couple of really egregious lapses defensively. At one point, he seemingly tried to join the Memphis Grizzlies mid-game where he just walked into their huddle, had multiple kerfuffles with one Desmond Bane, future former Knick, and it was a weird night in that sense, but he played hard. He played with a lot of emotion, and unlike a lot of times where that emotion's been channeled negatively recently, I think he channeled in a very positive, coordinated, focused way. And that, again, is all you can ask for from Julius Randle. All right, bouncing around the rest of the team real quick. Quentin Grimes, not his best night offensively. He took, I think, just multiple forced threes. One of which came after he just missed Obi Toppin, was late on the recognition, streaking wide open down the court for a dunk. But defensively, I counted 5 strips in this game. He only got 2 steals, so not all of them turned into turnovers, but 5 strips. The best one was his last, where he got Ja Morant from behind. He's ironclad hands. Not like Nerlens Noel having stone hands on offense. Ironclad hands in that he touches the basketball and it seems to just dissipate from the opponent's possession. He is going to be a fantastic defender in this league for a long time and is on track to be one of the elite shooters on planet Earth. So the Knicks, at the very least, got themselves a steal. Maybe they got themselves more. I love that he hit a mid-range jumper. Again, I think off another Randle dribble handoff. That is an important part of his game to come along. And I don't know, when I watch him shoot a mid-ranger, this is a ridiculous comparison because he's not doing it in one-on-one situations and he's doing it at extremely low volume. But just in terms of how the elevation he gets on a shot and the fact that it's over his head, I see a tiny bit of Devin Booker in there. And as a longtime Suns fan, as a longtime watcher of Devin Booker, that has me extremely excited about Quentin Grimes' future. Emmanuel Quickley, oh boy, what a night for Emmanuel Quickley. 11 points. 5 assists, 4 fouls, 2 turnovers, just 3 for 11 from the field, just 2 for 7 from 3. I wasn't really happy with this game from IQ. Again, I thought he was just searching in the first half, taking shots, and he does the thing where he's bouncing up and down, trying to will it in, and it's just not dropping right now. That was painfully, not painfully frustrating, but I feel his frustration because it sucks when you're a great shooter and you're having, again, what is now a months-long cold stretch for him. I think his free throws are very indicative of the fact that he's a better shooter than he's shown. I think Derrick Rose will make a significant difference when he's back, getting him easier looks. And also just from a fatigue factor, he's going to have to do so much less when he's in there. And that will inevitably turn him into a better shooter because you're a better shooter when you're not breathing heavy. You're a better shooter when you can get your legs under you, when your arms don't feel like they're a million pounds. So that is going to help him a lot. I wish he had shown off more efficiency over this long run without Rose. It was a real opportunity, I thought, for him to have a breakout. I was really confident he would, defensively he has. As a playmaker, he certainly has. I think, what is it, over the last month, he's averaged 8 assists per 30 minutes. That is a number that's just great for someone who a lot of people do not consider a point guard. If you're getting that from your quote unquote 6-man Lou Will type combo guard off the bench, he's no longer a Lou Will type. He's Lou Will, I don't think, has ever gotten 8 assists per 36 in his career. Someone call me out on that if I'm way wrong, because I'm talking maybe talking out of turn there. But he did have that ridiculous stretch where he had the 4-point play and then hit the 25-foot three after forced a timeout on that. Had a really nice drive near the end of the game where he beat Ja Morant on a curl, froze him on a little hezzy, then burst to the rim, finish over Steven Adams. He's just not someone who can consistently create his own offense going towards the basket in an efficient way yet, and that's okay. He's still really young. There's plenty of time for him to figure that out. It just doesn't always look good with Emmanuel Quickley right now, but he is a far better option than Kemba Walker. And I think, again, we'll have some really great games once Derrick Rose is back and healthy. Obi Toppin was quiet. Don't really need to say much there. And yeah, I think, wow, that's about Nerlens Noel. Mostly really sucked. I don't need to go into it. Alec Burks didn't really do anything. He looks fatigued. I'm curious if the Knicks deal him or maybe reduce his role, but I would be okay at this point. As great as Alec Burks has been for stretches the Knicks this season, and for stretches he's definitively been their best player, I would be fine with some Cam Reddish in that role. But guys, that's it. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, one more time, if you haven't already, please go subscribe on YouTube. If you're a new listener, and I know we have some new listeners, like especially on the video side of things, please go throw us a 5-star review on Apple. You can write whatever funny comments in the comments section. You can make fun of how I and Alex look. Whatever you got to do, but just please throw us 5 stars. We really appreciate it as always. And that is it for this episode of Locked On Knicks. We will be back soon with maybe a special guest or two and some more trade chatter. But until then, be good. Peace out.